But it's a good opportunity and a good time to consider what's facing us as individuals, not just as the church, but as humanity generally. I think of the time of in Scripture where Noah was told to build the ark, and humanity then faced an existential threat. But God, in through Noah, saved a remnant, and that remnant went on to repopulate the world and save humanity. Well, we are faced again with what is an existential threat, but I would like to say it's a four-pronged threat. It's not just the climate, as in the time of Noah when it was predominantly climate change, where Noah was facing preparation for the floods. You know, of course, climate change that never rained like that, never rained before, and the fountains of the deep, according to the scriptures, were never broken up. So the waters below the earth, you know, and scientists have proven that waters do exist below the earth, um, erupted and you know, not like a volcano would, but like a fountain would, a huge geyser would, and flooded the planet. But as you know the story, Noah was obedient and prepared, and he saved his household and animal life. You know, saw someone joking about the animals being saved and not plant life, and that shows where God puts the emphasis. But obviously, both flora and fauna were preserved because we have a wide variety of species of plant life still on the planet, and not just animal life. But we are facing a tremendous threat in these days. You know, what I call a four-pronged threat. The threat of artificial general intelligence is very real, and those who have created this AGI or AI are afraid, you know, and are looking to governments to try to help, to regulate, you know, what's now out of the box, and they're afraid that the control is going to be lost, you know, and it is to some extent already lost. So they're afraid of what's coming, and they feel it's already too late. Some feel it's already too late. The AI drops of rain, so to speak, have already begun to fall. But then again, we also see climate change in the real climate change, weather phenomena, you know, hurricanes increasing, heat, record cold, um, floodings, fires because of the dryness, record dryness, and so on, and loss of life along with that. And again, those who are given to such a discipline and study are very nervous, you know, and are preaching the imperative of watching our carbon footprint because of the threats of climate change and our contributing to the dramatic shift in the climate. And so, so the drops of climate change rain, the threat of climate change have already begun, and low-lying areas, you know, with regard to coastal areas, have already been inundated, you know, and flooded out because of rising sea levels, because of the melting of the ice in North Pole and so on, and that's very real, and people are afraid. But also, another prong in the four prongs, you know, we have the AI threat, the climate change threat, but new diseases, new diseases, you know, coronavirus. Coronavirus was a new thing. Well, that strand of it, coronavirus wasn't new, but the new version of it, is what we, what caused the pandemic. And and of course you saw the damage that it caused globally. Again, a pandemic, not an epidemic, and why it wiped out hundreds of thousands of lives. And it showed that there is a a constant threat in these times of ever evolving diseases, new strands, or strains, or types of diseases that are just coming to the fore, um, and creating lots of challenges. Um, Again, the speculation of where do these new diseases come from? Are they um, engineered in labs and slip out, through the vent or through the window, or someone took something on their garment, and it spread in the community. Wherever, the reality is that humanity is facing a threat of these new diseases. We had chikungunya, who knew? We had Zika virus, who knew? And new coronavirus, uh, COVID-19, and so the reality is that there are new strands of diseases manifesting regularly. There's some old diseases, but they, with new strengths, and requiring new approaches to stop the spread. And so those who are given to this study are also the study of infectious diseases and so on, are also nervous. The WHO, World Health Organization, they're putting out statements again on the fears and the threats. So here's the other prong. It's the drops of the disease have already begun to fall. The raindrops of new novel diseases have begun to fall, and we've seen the results of that, and we've seen it. Um, so we've seen the AI dynamic, Chat GPT and all of its powers and what it can do. Well, most persons are not really alert or unaware of the threats of it, but those in the industry are and are afraid. The issue of the climate change. Many still say, what is the? I don't live in the coast. I don't know. We've always had snow. We've always had summer. But those who are in the know are afraid and very concerned. And then those who are in the know regarding the diseases are also very afraid and very concerned. Um, and the fourth prong, obviously, is warfare, military conflict with modern weapons, and of course, at the fore would be the nuclear weapons, um, and the threat to humanity um, being faced by the possible and probable use of these weapons. We know that over many decades, those that were aware of the destructive power of a nuclear weapon were afraid and sounding the alarm. In fact, apparently those who created it, some of the scientists who were involved in creating nuclear power, nuclear weapons, resigned and were ready to give up on life, and it said that some even committed suicide because they saw the threat to humanity that was created. Um, this was, of course, about 4 or 5 decades ago. Um, but it's now more real. We had the conflict between in the Cold War period, the conflict between the U.S. and the USSR, and heightened tensions and fears of a nuclear conflict. But now, with the Russian Federation's conflict with the Ukraine, and NATO backing Ukraine, and some other nations backing nuclear enabled and armed nations backing Russia, there is a real threat of of deployment and use of whether tactical or strategic nuclear capabilities. Tactical meaning battlefield used in a immediate uh, scenario, or strategic meaning the bigger versions to wipe out an entire city or country. And those in the know are afraid, and blowing the alarm and warning of the threats. Of course, we've heard of the Russian president Vladimir Putin's threats, and moving tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus. So it's all possible, and it is probable. Well, it's possible. And so, what is the responsibility of the people of faith? With all of this four-pronged threat, existential threat to humanity. What is the correct approach for you as a believer? What should we be doing as the church? It matters. It matters because the threat is not the threat is to humanity, and that involves the church. And there is a responsibility by the church to protect humanity. We see the raindrops, so to speak, of the AI threat. We see the raindrops of climate change threat. We see the raindrops of new diseases threat. We see the raindrops of nuclear destruction threat, the threats of nuclear destruction. And so we do have a responsibility to create the ark, to do what we can in order to save humanity and save the creation. We have a responsibility. And so what do we do? What do you think the Lord wants of you? And I want to share a four-pronged approach to responding to these threats. The four-pronged approach, as there is a four-pronged threat. So here's the four-pronged approach that I believe the church has a responsibility to engage in. Number one, to get involved in leadership. To get involved in leadership. That is, to not be silent on the sidelines and wait for deliverance from some good prime minister or some good president or some good member of parliament. I believe that the people of faith must get involved at the policy level in order to be able to make policies that protect and restrict organizations and the creators of these things, and regulate how things are used and what's done, and put sanctions on those who would use these things and would cause challenges. So even though the drops have begun to fall, you can still get involved and try to do what you can to make a difference as quickly as you can. So get involved, put your name up, for nomination for position at the different levels for community and country leadership. In your community and nationally, run for public office. The church has a responsibility to in order to be saviors of humanity, to get involved, to put good policy in place that's balanced, that's fair, that's just, that's prudent, that's it's smart, and it protects the environment and it protects individuals. So that's the first prong. The second prong is in regard to continuing to show compassion and to live what we call credible Christianity, because demonstrating your humanity and kindness and compassion, being actively compassionate and benevolent in your outlook, again, helps individuals to have hope. So it might sound simple, just what I choose to do in my own community, in my neighborhood, and amongst those around me, it matters because then smiles are contagious, and good works. People tend to think of paying it forward. So we can do that so that we strengthen the sense of community and humanity, and people have faith in the common humanity again by deeds you've done, being benevolent works, giving to others, helping the poor, sheltering those who need shelter, and so on, and so that we see that there is a good amongst us, and so it's not uh, let it all burn. No, but let it be preserved because I want this for my neighbor. I want this for those around me. So the second prong is demonstrating compassion, actively demonstrating your credible Christianity. That I care and I will sacrifice in order for your benefit. Showing compassion and humanity. That's very important. I can't overstate that. Okay, demonstrating credible Christianity. The third prong, I would say, is effective spiritual activity. Now, the gifts of the church are not, the gifts of the Spirit are not given for celebrity status in the church. The gifts of the Spirit will always be for for utility reasons, and there is a need for it. Whether it is miracles, healing, prophecy, word of knowledge, word of wisdom, the spiritual activity for the benefit of humanity. Yes, benefit of the church, but benefit of humanity. And using spiritual gifts, as the Bible says, earnestly covet the best gifts. Earnestly covet. It's one of the only areas that the Bible teaches us to covet anything. The other might be covet prayer. Paul would say, I covet your prayers. I earnestly desire your prayers. But it also says covet gifts, earnestly desire gifts for the sake of saving humanity, saving the environment, miracles, the working of miracles, the working of healings, the working of word of knowledge, word of wisdom, prophecy, tongues and interpretation of tongues, gift of faith, discerning of spirits. All of these things are, for for utility to bring good to humanity. So actively engage in spiritual gifts for the benefit of people around you and indeed the nation on a whole. So it's not just for your celebrity status. Look at me, I turn water into wine. No, it's for our common humanity. So the first prong is get involved in leadership. Second prong, credible Christianity, show love and compassion. Third, utilize spiritual gifts. Go ahead in your churches, in your communities, wherever you are, facilitate spiritual gifts. Learn it and learn to work them. And then fourthly, the issue of continuing in fellowship. Continuing in fellowship. That's, you'd be surprised. How does that help to abate or avert this existential threats against us as humanity? Well, showing society and coming together and enjoying each other's company and realizing that we are a society, we are a community of people, and we can do things together, as a collective, as a corporate body. And so keeping in fellowship with others, not separating ourselves and hiding away, tucking ourselves in our rooms and away from our community. Get back involved in fellowship. Yes, with the pandemic, many people stopped going to church, and everything was virtual. You're going to church online predominantly. Meetings were being held on Zoom and Teams and Google Meet and WhatsApp and all of these things. And we've been using these things, and not in physical fellowship. But there is virtue and strategy in coming together and seeing, eyeballing each other and being physically present with each other and getting back that sense of common humanity and community and society. And so, as simple as these may sound, they do help to push against the threats, because together we're able to make a difference. Together we can determine what we're going to do as a group, and so on. And so these little things, push back. Ultimately, we're pushing back against not just the dynamics of the AI threat, the dynamics of the carbon dioxide and climate change threat, the dynamics of new diseases, or the dynamics of artificial of nuclear threat. Uh, Ultimately, Ephesians 6:12 tells us that our struggle is not against humanity itself. We've seen the dangers come from humanity, the carbon dioxide emissions, the, the conflicts, between individuals looking to set off things, and building some, of these things, contributing to these diseases in the labs and so on. But ultimately, the Bible teaches that it's a nefarious spirit that is behind our destructive nature and the manifestation of these threats. And so we wrestle not against flesh and blood, right? Ephesians 6:12. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. That's what the Bible teaches us, right? Against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And it says in verse 13 of Ephesians 6, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. So the Bible does require from us that we respond to the threats, but it is not responding to the individuals as the threat, not seeing them as the threat, but seeing the spiritual element as the threat, these nefarious spirits. And so not only do we do the physical things of policy creation and so on, but we also do the spiritual things. So though we see the four-pronged threat, we must use a four-pronged approach. Spiritual gifts included, fellowship included, the regular prayer and manifestation of our spiritual life and credible Christianity. They're all good means to push back and to create the Noah's Ark of our modern time to save our common humanity. Bless you. I pray that the Lord will indeed continue to use you, and that you will allow your spiritual gifts to manifest, and you will be able to solve some of our complex problems even through your spiritual gifts. The Lord bless you and your household. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Brodber for Rebirth. Take care.